Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Maximum News. I am your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kin, Max Darrett.
And I am Subsidian of the Triple S League.
And we got a lot of news that we got to get into this week. I don't really have much time to record, so we're just going to jump right into it. I do have some write ups first, but before we get started with those, Saib actually just told me a little bit of breaking news right before we started recording. Saib, do you want to share that with everybody?
Sure. So this is going to be take this with a grain of salt. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I most certainly didn't hack this from a very impossible AI that guards his information way too securely. I most certainly didn't pay a team of black ops operatives to break into a data vault somewhere and steal a bunch of information. That definitely is illegal. That I do not recommend in any way, shape, or form.
That's what he usually does. He just didn't do it this particular time, but go
Yeah,
on.
not this particular time. So the reason why I bring this up is because this is starting to hit several rumor stations on the interwebs. So I figure you guys might want to know what's going on before things go down. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a tidbit thing here. It's nothing. I can't get into the details. Can't even promise anything major here, but the rumors are circulating, not just here, but on a bunch of other places. So let's just I'm going to quickly mention it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a rumor that is going on right now that we are going to expect to hear an announcement of 2 or more major IPs, existing IPs that have been bought out by Microsoft, and that this announcement will come during E3. Now, I'm not 100% positive, and by E3 they mean the Bethesda Microsoft showcase conference that they're going to be doing. I'm not going to guarantee that it's going to come out there. I think people are expecting it to. It may or may not, but it may follow sometime afterwards. But from the news, this is a done deal. Apparently, they have 2 or more, which does kind of lean into the whole. They bought out a major studio network in Japan. So expect these games to quite possibly have something to do with, being originally created or formulated or showcased in Japan in the last few decades. Expect
Uh-huh.
these to be some interesting and big names.
Uh-huh.
And there to be at least 2. I don't know what exactly they are. There is a couple of rumors going around from everything from the entirety of Sega. I believe I mentioned that before.
Yep.
To quite possibly buying out existing IPs from a certain Konami. Konami. Um, this rumor has been around for quite a while. Konami basically stopped making games and have been making pachinko games and
Mm.
have been making a lot of money off of gambling that's not actually legally gambling, but everybody knows it's gambling. Again, take this with a grain of salt. A lot of these things I'm not sold on that it's Konami. I really don't think it is, because I think I
Too
think they
evil
might
for that?
they really are too evil for that, especially if the other rumor is true in regards to that rumor, which is that Kojima will be taking up the mantle and
Right.
will be making games exclusively for Microsoft. I don't know if this is true. Just, I mean, as a general thing, like this is for sure not like confirmed. I don't know if I would believe that, just due to the fact that it's just simply is like, I don't think Konami would give Kojima the win if they knew that that was what was going to happen. I think they hate him too much to do that, and so that's why I would cautious not jumping on that rumor.
Mm.
But these things are definitely in the works, and within a week here we're going to be getting a big showcase on a lot of this stuff here. So yeah, this is some rumors. My personal bet, which again, I'm not guaranteed. I've been hearing things about Sega. I've been hearing things with Square Enix. I've been hearing lots and lots and lots and lots of little things. In some cases, there's a lot of publishers in Japan that have been looking to sever their ties with Sony
Yeah.
because they feel that Sony has abandoned them, that they've turned their back on them, and that they're no longer interested in traditional Japanese games, that they feel that they've been kind of led on a leash here recently. So there are a lot of studios that have enough autonomy that could decide to sever their ties with Sony. So it's a lot of things up in the air. And if you're wondering, well, Saib, you're just a voice on the interwebs. How do we know we can trust you on this? Because I was the first person ever to publicly announce that the big title that Kojima was working on at the time, Death Stranding, was coming to the Xbox and PC as well. I was the first person to suggest that.
Wait,
Um,
it didn't ever come to
sorry,
Xbox though.
no, they. Sorry, I meant the Windows. That side of the Xbox,
Oh,
not
okay.
Xbox, but Windows, because he had to work with basically had to work with Microsoft to get it running on there. It's not a console; it's just the it's just the OS, right?
Hmm.
So I was the first one to announce that, and that he was wanting to move away from having games exclusively on the consoles, because he didn't believe that that was a good market for it, and he was more interested in the art than playing politics with console companies, and so that he wanted to bring he wanted to bring his next game to the PC via Windows, not Xbox, via Windows, and have as many people on the planet able to play the game as possible. So that was essentially what he wanted to do, and I made that announcement a full year and a half before it was made public. I got a lot of grief for it too, because a lot of people were like, "You're crazy," and I was like, "No, I'm not." So yeah, it's I have good contacts in Japan, and again with this news, it's interesting. I don't know exactly what it is, but if you're interested in Japanese games, tune in to the Microsoft showcase, because you are about to be impressed, I hope.
It's pretty much the one showcase this E3 that I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward to, that anybody's really looking forward to. I mean, like IGN don't really pay attention to what IGN
Mhm.
says most of the time, but they did do a poll of their community and asked them, hey, what conference are you looking forward to the most at this year's E3? 70% of the vote went to Microsoft Bethesda, and
Yeah.
that's mainly because of stuff like Starfield, Halo, maybe Hellblade, and a couple others I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting. If they can drop a couple extra bombs, like, God, if they announce that they bought the rights to make Metal Gear Solid games from henceforth, I will pray to Phil Spencer every night for the rest of my life. I'll just be at the foot of my bed and recite the Lord's Prayer, but just replace all the heavenly titles with Phil. 'Cause seriously, that would be legendary. That would be a coup unlike anything that we've seen ever since E3 2013, when Sony did the whole used game thing. So please, God, let that be true. And yeah, but just remember, just to reiterate what Saib just said, this is all just rumors. Take this with a grain of salt. Might not be true. We'll see.
Or it
Anyways,
may not be announced right away. And this is but this is something that we've been hearing, and I believe that it's more likely than not to be announced at E3, because they want to wow everybody. And while they will not be showing gameplay of upcoming games, they are definitely going to be interested in telling you, the consumer, what you're going to be playing in a year or two, because
mhm.
that choice, that decision, that piece of information, may very well be a decision factor between you purchasing between the two consoles, right? So
Right.
that this is something that they desperately want. They want you to know that you're going to have a future on the Xbox if you're buying a new console.
Right. And what's Sony doing right now? I mean, they're doing their
Censoring more games,
yeah. I,
like
I mean,
like
yeah, that, yeah, but they are doing their state of plays, but they're not really
mhm,
having anything, as far as I can tell, happening at this year's E3. So what Microsoft and Bethesda want to do is just go at it with the bang. Sony's not
mhm.
here. Let's just knock it out of the park. If they can do stuff with Starfield, Halo, and then announce these new IPs that they acquired, new IPs, you know what I mean. They set themselves up really, really well for the coming generation. All right. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to our next piece of information, just staying on the theme of E3. Yeah, so E3 is upon us. It's coming out next week, starting on June 12th. That's just about a week from now at the time of the release of this episode. So yeah, it's in case you guys don't know what E3 is, it's the time of year where all the major game companies come together and showcase all the hardware and software that we can look forward to over the next few years. It's usually a bunch of fabricated lies, as our former co-host Black Pencil Ninja says, but nonetheless, it's still fun to pretend as if the lie is true. For example, it's fun to believe that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is ever going to come out, and that when it does, it will actually be a good game. Anyways, we've known for a while when certain conferences were going to happen. Obviously, we just talked about Microsoft Bethesda. That's happening on June 13th. That's the Sunday. The day prior to that, it's going to be Ubisoft. Speaking of Beyond Good and Evil 2, unless they show something related to that, or Splinter Cell, or Prince of Persia, don't really care. Oh yeah, Square Enix is also on the Sunday, but like, is there, aside, just let me know quickly, is there anything aside from Final Fantasy 16 that we should be looking forward to in regards to that? Like, I know they'll have Marvel's Avengers stuff.
Yeah, more of that, more of I think sort of that we might hear something about Outriders.
Oh yeah.
I would not hold my breath for that. That game has had some serious problems, and they did their recent patch, which they said was going to fix a lot of it, fixed literally none of it.
Mhm.
Still a ton of the same problems continuing to happen. Just a failure to deliver there with that. Horrifyingly sad for people who like. I mean, I was fairly invested with the game and with our community, and it just came to a point where we just couldn't play it anymore. It was unplayable as a community experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is not. We might get something there for that one. We might get a couple other announcements, but yeah, I'm not sure. Don't hold your breath on too much, because this is a company that's been having a lot of struggles recently with direction and feeling. Now, some of their older titles that really narrow in on the things that people like have been doing great, but this soiree into the live service microtransaction infested gameplay has caused a lot of damage, and I suspect will continue to cause a lot of damage. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't hold your breath, and until this whole microtransaction thingy is destroyed, I mean, really don't hope and pray for a game to come out necessarily that you're hoping to get a continuation on the IP, just to discover that they've completely brutalized it with microtransactions.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm personally very afraid of that. But maybe their recent losses, maybe their recent black eyes will have improved their outlook on things. We'll see. It's one of those big ones where it's like, I don't know what to tell you about Square Enix, because there's a lot of stuff going on there, and a lot of it isn't good.
Yeah.
And again, just look at the Avengers and look at Outriders, and you can see that. I mean, it's not just them; it's everybody who's tried to jump this bandwagon recently. The only one that's done it with any level of success has been Apex. So
Yeah.
you know,
And we
yeah,
love
we'll see.
Respawn, and they were the ones that did it right,
Hmm.
somewhat. Yeah, Square Enix. The only way I'll really ever care about anything that they say about it at this year's E3 is if they announce a revival of Legacy of Kain, but there's no snowball's chance in hell that that's going to happen. We were still wondering when Nintendo was going to do their presentation, right? Like every company except for Sony had one, it seemed like. Well, last Wednesday, Nintendo revealed on Twitter that they will be doing a special E3 2021 Nintendo Direct on Tuesday, June 15th at noon Eastern Standard Time. According to them, the presentation will be about 40 minutes long, and it will be focused, quote, exclusively on Nintendo Switch software, mostly releasing in 2021. Now, I have my speculations as to what that software will be, but before I give my speculations, I like to throw it over to Saib. Saib, what games do you think we can reasonably expect to be shown off, and what games most likely won't be there? Metroid Prime 4.
So I don't know if you know this, but Zelda is now 35 years old. Isn't that amazing?
Oh,
And doesn't that
yeah.
make you feel ancient and old? Nintendo is 35 years old this year. Nintendo has typically done a major Zelda E release once every 4 to 5 years ish, give or take a little bit. There are some bigger gaps than others, but that's typically more or less what they've gone with. So every 4 or 5 years. Interestingly enough, Breath of the Wild launched in 2017.
Hmm.
So I think if I can do my math right here, 2017 to 2018, that's 1 year. 2018 to 2019, that's 2 years.
2, yeah.
2019 to 2020, that's 3 years. 2020 to 2021, that would be four years. Ooh.
Ooh.
That is so very interesting.
The stars are aligning.
And now, of course, they have been affected, as everybody has been from the thing, but they haven't been affected nearly as much. Japan's actually been a pretty safe place for the most part.
Well, up until
Um,
the last month or so, but yeah.
yeah, up until very recently, but just generally speaking, it like there's a couple of places that you'd like to be, and that was one of them. So, yeah. So interestingly enough, that really seems to tie up, and of course they knew that they were having a 35th anniversary.
Hmm.
And I mean, if they wanted to, prep for the 40th anniversary, then I mean, having something released this year would open the door for them to do this again in about 5 years. So this year is a real good option for them. Just the stars are aligning for this. This does seem like potentially big thing. Let's cross our fingers and hope that it's good. Let's cross our fingers and hope that we get it, or that we get to see something on it. because
Breath of the
yeah,
Wild.
that 40th year anniversary. I mean, so people are already talking, and this year is the time for a new Zelda product. This is, like I said, the stars align. They have been hinting at stuff. They have been talking about it. The Hyrule Warriors. I can speak.
Yeah.
Age of Calamity. You know, we're expecting to see a little bit more with that too. So yeah, there's a lot of things there, and I think that's probably going to be a big one. Something Pokemon-y. I mean, probably
Yeah.
almost for sure, right? Like that's almost like saying the rain is wet, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, Pokemon has been just a juggernaut for the last few years, and I would be very surprised if we don't get some kind of major update on something that's coming out shortly, because that's what Pokemon has been doing for a long while now.
Yeah. Still got to catch
Uh,
them all.
yeah, yeah. There is a big there is a big set for I think it's Arcus or whatever it is, coming in January 28th, 2022. So I mean that is a little ways away, obviously, but they could be doing a couple of different other things too. It's not a single, it's not a single product there. Will we get some Bayonetta or Metroid? I'm not sure.
I don't
We'll
think so.
see. I
Yeah.
wouldn't I wouldn't I wouldn't count on it.
I think after, what was the name of the guy that came out and said, yeah, we had to delay Metroid Prime 4 because it was sucking and we had to change course. I don't think they're
Yeah,
going to announce anything in regards to that until they're absolutely sure that they know what they're doing.
yeah.
And Bayonetta 3, that's been like the last game that came out in that series like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, they made an announcement for Bayonetta 3, 2017, and then in 2019, there was something else. So yeah, we haven't heard much on this title. It's been one of those things that's just been kind of like floating out there for a while, right? So
Platinum Games hasn't really been doing a whole lot lately, unfortunately.
yeah,
We'll see.
yeah, yeah. It was Platinum Games Bayonetta 3, revealed in 2017 at the Game Awards.
Okay.
Um, since then, largely not a lot. So
Hopefully. I've never got into the Bayonetta series, but from what everybody
yeah,
tells me, it's absolutely fantastic. And considering the fact that I am probably going
yeah,
to get a Nintendo Switch pretty soon, if the rumors about the Switch Pro are true, I would definitely like to try it on that system. Just one last thing before we move on from this topic. What are the chances, like you were brought up, the 35th anniversary of Zelda is this year. Any chance that we'll get sort of like what they did with the Super Mario 3D All Stars, where they remastered Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy for the Switch, that they will do that for Zelda, but for what is it, Ocarina of Time?
yeah. I'm
And
not. I'm not sure. Like, Nintendo constantly leaves things on the table. It's my biggest. It's my biggest pet peeve about Nintendo is that they, and this ties into our next story too. So I don't know. Maybe we can segue into that.
yeah,
But Nintendo constantly shuts down old games being played on new machines. That's not them.
yeah,
But when asked to create some way of us having access to those games,
they
and
don't
in
do it.
some cases, we own those games. I've owned, Zelda 2 cartridge for a dog's age, actually multiple ages at this point. It's one of my favorite games. Really got me into gaming as a child.
Hmm.
And yet I cannot play that legally in any way, shape, or form, despite the fact that I own it. Is it my fault that the machine died? Is it my fault that they haven't created more? Like that's my complaint. They constantly leave a lot of IPs, game experiences on the table, and they just look at us and say, "No, you don't deserve this." So I find it very hard to root for them when they constantly refuse to allow access to a lot of games that we legally own, that we want the right to be able to play, and yet they continually say no. And it's just kind of sad that they don't see that there's a big opportunity to
Make
grow
money.
a committed audience and make money at the same time. And it's not like these things don't make them a lot of money. I mean, they came out with those like nano or like those micro consoles, right?
Mm,
They were the biggest sellers that year for holidays. Couldn't even buy them fast enough. And then what did they do? They stopped making them and said no. They had like 10 million pre-orders of people lining up saying, "No, I'll buy one," and they capped it off and then walked away and locked the door. And the weirdest thing about this is that they're not a super wealthy company, and they have in more than one case been cash strapped, and
yeah.
yet they refuse to do something so simple is give us an app with all these ancient games on them. Like, I'm talking about the really old ones, like just from the first, Nintendo, let alone the Super Nintendo. I mean, if you packaged up like the top 25 games and then the top 50 and then the top 100 in a couple of different packages and sold them on an app device, even your own native app store,
Yeah.
like you would make $1 billion in a day. And yet, for some reason, they continually ignore this. So I don't know. It's weird. One more thing that I want to add. I believe you mentioned that in Metroid they did talk about how in 2019. This is what I was trying to say this earlier. In 2019 they did say that the next Metroid game would be delayed due to basically restarting development. So are we going to see that? I kind of doubt it, because they did restart the development. I do wonder how much of it was restarted, or what exactly was restarted, and exactly when too. Like if they came out and said, the next thing is going to be delayed because we had to restart. Well, did they restart that year or the year before? Right?
Mm.
Did they restart that production, a couple weeks before that announcement or a full year before that announcement? And they're just coming out to say, hey guys, it's going to be another 2 or 3 years. If that's the case, then we might see something from this sometime soon. But again, we may not, because if they didn't start redeveloping it in earnest, and then if they depending on how much they redeveloped, then we may not see anything from Metroid at all for the next 2 years. So it is one of those big things. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that obviously Animal Crossing is huge. Probably might see something from that.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter is huge. Might again see something with that. And then of course the actual big 40 this year will be Donkey Kong is turning 40. They could do something and should do something with that, because that is again another very underutilized IP. I mean, Donkey Kong Country was an amazing game and it was really good.
Are you talking
And
about
then
the original or the one that just came out recently on the Wii U?
well, I mean the original Donkey Kong Country, or the original Donkey Kong game.
No, I'm talking about Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. Donkey Kong Country. That's the one that's the one I talked about.
Okay.
It's like you had a lot of promise there with that game, and then they didn't really seem to like ever really do very much with it afterwards. So again, dude, seriously, Nintendo is weird. They leave so much on the table.
I still don't understand why they haven't done a Pokemon MMO yet, because if they're worried about making money, all they had to do is put that out, and then suddenly World of Warcraft dies within a year. I'm being facetious, but honestly, just do it. It's the reason why I haven't played Pokemon since Pokemon Crystal, because I just know that MMO is going to come out sometime, and then when it does, everybody the world over stops being productive, and then the end times come about. But just going back to what you were saying before about Nintendo not being particularly good when it comes to preserving their games, I think that is a good segue. So, okay, file this next story under how stupid do you have to be. So I'm sure if you're a gamer, you know what emulation is. Basically, it's these programs you can download to your PC so you can play games that aren't so easily available. So for example, if you wanted to play, to use Saib's example before, a Zelda 2, but your SNES or any... What was it on? Was it just the original NES?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If you wanted to play that game, but you don't really have any means to play it because your NES is broken, you would download the NES emulator for your PC, and then download the game, and then play it off your PC. But when you download the emulator, in order to play that certain game, you have to install what's known as a ROM. Now, there are tons of ROM websites where you can download old games and play them through these emulators. And one of these websites was known as Rom Universe. This website made a mistake regarding the distribution of ROMs. See, in case you guys are completely illiterate when it comes to the law, you can't make money off of somebody else's intellectual property. And what Rom Universe did was sell premium accounts that you had to pay for so that people could download as many ROMs as they wanted. Now, Nintendo took the site's operator, Matthew Storman, to court where he, confusingly, decided to defend himself. Ultimately, he failed, and now he owes Nintendo $2.1 million. Now, if Nintendo had gotten their way, it would have been $15 million. Now, believe me, I'm not a fan of the way companies like Nintendo treat the emulator community, and neither is Saib, as you just demonstrated. Remember a few months back when they took down that piece of software that let people play Super Smash Bros. Melee online? Yeah, that sucked. That sucked big time. I wish I knew about that, because Super Smash Bros. Melee is one of my top 10 favorite games, and I would have loved to kick the ass of some guy who lives in Romania. Totally. But in this case, I'm of the opinion that Nintendo was in the right, even though we don't like their policy when it comes to emulators. What do you think, Saib?
It's one of these things where, in all honesty, they should have engaged with this earlier on, taken control of it, and then monetized it. I wouldn't mind paying 5, 10, 20, even for $30, even $40, really, for particular games if they were, fixed and then made it so that you could actually run the game on a little app or something like that. They could have their own Steam store with their own lineup of stuff, and that could be, that would be more than enough. And yet they continually just walk away from it. And
Absolutely.
it's like, why?
I would love to play. I had so much fun back in the day with Super Smash Bros. Melee, dude. Just being able to play that. Because back in the day, those consoles didn't have online. Well, I mean, Xbox did, and then PS2 eventually did. But GameCube did not, as far as I can remember. And we had to go over to each other's houses in order to play against each other. And all I had at the time was my sister, and she wasn't very good. But yeah, just be able to play that game with people online would be great. But in this particular case, Nintendo was in the right. This guy, he shouldn't have been profiting off of the use of their IP.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the issue of emulation and providing ROMs without a proper alternative, it's hard to really blame people that go this route. I mean, I've gone this route. I'm currently playing through Silent Hill 3 through a PS2 emulator. It's because it's very difficult to get a proper copy of that game. And no, I'm not buying the HD collection, Konami, you lazy money grubbing. Okay, I can't swear here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, and I mean, this is one of these scenarios where if they were interested in making this work, they could have found 100 different ways to do it. And it's just, it just smacks of, why can't they see what people want and respond to it? One of the big people who took over at EA in the recent years, the one who's been largely responsible for what's been going on with Respawn, one of their first things that they did, this is just kind of came out recently, is they got a room full of influencers and content creators and said, what is wrong with EA? And she asked, what is wrong with EA? What are we doing wrong?
Right.
And one of the guys raised his hands and said, it feels like you don't care what the fans think. It feels like you don't care what we think, and you don't care what we want. You don't create or give us what we want. We want something, and you say no, you will be happy with this other thing. And then they force you to take the other thing. And it's that ultimate, can we have cereal? No, we have cereal at home. It's like that kind of disappointment that you're giving. It's a meme of disappointment that you're constantly giving your players. And again, Nintendo's great with a lot of their stuff. They've really done fantastically well with a lot of things that they put their mind to. But there's a lot of other things that they've just completely ignored. It's a lot of games that Japanese developers create for Nintendo that we never see the daylight of in any other country. And there is a lot of this kind of sense that certain things are just not for everybody else, even though there's a large demand for it. So why do they do this when they have the ability to, and they have actively done things like Mario and Zelda and Pokemon? Why do they embrace everybody in some things but not in other things? And it's just very confusing. By the way, as far as Pokemon goes, Marnie is awesome.
Who's Marnie?
Marnie? Sword and Shield, I believe. Yeah, Sword and Shield character.
Yeah, well, like I said, I unfortunately
also called Mary, depending on who you ask.
Okay.
But yeah, she's awesome.
Maybe I should get back into Pokemon one day. I mean, Pokemon Crystal, speaking of top 10 favorite games of all time, that is on my top 10. It's just a magnificent game, even to play today. And maybe there has been, from what I've been told, there have been fantastic Pokemon releases since then. Maybe I should check out Sword and Shield when I eventually get a Switch. Anyways, we did have one more story, but we are sort of approaching the maximum amount of time, and we pretty much got a whole lot taken care of nonetheless. E3's coming out next week. I'm pretty excited, primarily for the Microsoft Bethesda thing. We will be doing coverage of it on this channel, and also Cy will be doing it on the Triple S League, of course. Do you just want to tell people how they can find you there, Cy, before we close out for the week?
Yeah, find us on the Triple S League. That's on YouTube. Just type in the Triple S League, and there we are. You can check out us. We'll be going live we go live every Saturday morning there. Every Tuesday evening, we're live on the Triple S podcast, and we're trying to separate kind of news and info to actual straight up like game stuff and live streams. We're trying to keep those things a little bit more separated, so that's why we've created a second channel for that. So yeah,
links to that are in the description box below. And in regards to me, you can find me at my personal channel by clicking the link again in the description box below. I will primarily be doing most of my E3 coverage on this channel here at the Disability channel. Although, believe me, if there is, please God, some announcement that Metal Gear Solid is in fact making a comeback, you'll be the first to hear it over on my main channel. That does it for us this week, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in again next week when we probably will, maybe we'll have the push maximum news until after E3, or maybe like a couple of days into the future just so we can cover those announcements. We'll see. Maybe there'll be like one or two big announcements where we can do a show beforehand. But until then, just remember, as always, my beautiful, beautiful people, stay yellow.